Hello, everybody. This is Vandana Joshal. Welcome you again to a special bath, Lajja Ke Saath. Lajja, as you all know, is a forum that gives women a non-judgmental space to be themselves. This is a forum where we have women who have achieved so much in life, but all they're waiting for is some acknowledgement for the work they've done, some appreciation, and encouragement to do better and reach further. We have, over the course of our years and our interaction, we have tried to bring you women who have excelled in their field, or who have set on a new path of discovery, or who have done something new and something that inspires so many women. On that, talking on that note, we have we talk about sports. When we talk about sports, we talk about women. We talk about men in sports. We talk about how great they are, how great Sachin Tendulkar is, how great Dhoni is. How often do we talk about the women in sports? And if that is what makes us sad, then think about all the women sports presenters who are there, who have been working hard, who have been following sports just as passionately as men and reporting about it. And yet, not many of us know such women. So it gives us immense pleasure to introduce one such dynamic sports presenter and broadcaster here on Lajja. And I know this is exciting. I'm excited because for me too, sports is still an arena which I never really touch upon. I play with my children, but that's as far as I go with sports. So I want to know a little bit more. I want to learn. I want to be inspired and hopefully inspire my daughters to also do something like this. So please join me as I welcome the beautiful, the dynamic, the talented, and the very young Harini Rana.
Hi,
Harini.
Vandana. How are you? Lovely to
I'm
have
good.
you here, actually. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's our pleasure. And like I told you, like we were discussing beforehand, we don't know too many women sports presenters. So this is indeed an opportunity for us to learn and ask you questions. So women who are watching us, please put in questions. We will ensure that Harini answers all of that. And my daughter's name is Arini, so I might tend to call you Arini often, and I hope you don't mind that.
Absolutely not a problem, Vandana. It's all good.
Okay, so let me introduce her officially. Let me tell you a little bit more about Harini Rana. She's a news and sports broadcaster, leading coverage for news events, interacting with varied newsmakers and marquee sports tournaments. She has led a 9-member team for over 7 years as India's most watched TV news channel Times Now. She's India's second female sports editor to a news editor of national TV channel and is continuing into storytelling by leading content strategy at IMG Reliance. Her diverse background includes storytelling, reporting compelling stories, presenting and conducting interviews, formulating strategy, developing partnerships with different broadcasting and digital platforms. Wow. And there is more people. This is not just it. She has been, apart from India, she has reported in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Asia, and South Asian countries. She has covered marquee sports news events like, now wait for this, you have to hear this. She has covered marquee sports news events like Cricket World Cup from 2007 to an impressive 2019. She's covered the Olympic Games in 2010 and 2014. She's done tennis Grand Slam reporting at Wimbledon and the Australian Open, and she's done many other big ticket general news events like the Mumbai terror attack, the serial bomb attacks, crucial national level court verdicts, general elections of 2009 and 2014, the state elections in Maharashtra and Gujarat, and her journey has been featured on Australia's ABC Morning Show and on the Herald Sun newspaper. She's been featured in Chitralekha. Oh my God, I'm getting just goosebumps just
I
talking
think we
about
should just
you.
start talking. I think we should just start talking, Vandana. Let's go for it.
You're enjoying this. But most importantly, she was invited by the government of Australia to represent India for Global Business Summit as part of the Women's Day celebration in Melbourne in March 2020. I hope you were able to go and the lockdown didn't play spoil sport.
I just came back in time. Thankfully, I just came back in time a week before actually the lockdown happened. So
Okay.
thankfully, I was not stranded in Australia or Melbourne. But yeah, I mean, I just have so many memories of that because since the time I've come back, I've pretty much been home, working from home and working at home as everyone
Yeah.
else is. So that's the only memories that I have. Ki, oh, that was the time when I was out, and that was such a
Yeah.
luxury.
I know, amazing. So, yes, people, she uses her experience and her network in sport, media, and management to champion the cause for women in sport. She visits various media institutes across the country and schools to encourage more girls to take up sport. And I think that is quite a task because I believe that girls should be taking up the opportunities that come their way in sports. She also shares her knowledge learned through spirituality with young students, mid aged professionals, and senior citizens. She is very spiritual, and we will get to know all of that as we go on with our discussion with Harini.
Absolutely.
So, Harini, let us get cracking right away, and let me ask you, how did you get into sports news and broadcasting?
Okay, so Vandana, I'm going to go back in time. So this
Yes.
might be taking a bit of time, but anyways, what happened with me was when I started my journey, probably three generations of my family was not related to media. No sort of fame or anything like that, nothing like that. So I decided to sort of do something different. So is as you would know, every Gujarati household, you either be a doctor or you be an engineer. Even my siblings, most of them, I have an elder sister, she's also an engineer.
All
So
right.
I was very clear that I want to do something different. So what different meant to me was I wanted to be a commercial pilot. So
Wow.
I obviously decided to take up science and decided to give an entrance, cleared the entrance later on before the admission. I figured that, you take it needed about 40 plus lakh of money to just finish your course. So you have certain number of hours that you complete, and till the time you don't get a job, you need to keep upgrading those hours. So at that point of time, my family obviously decided they were ready to take a loan and they were ready to take that risk. But I knew in terms of my family background, we came from a middle class to a low middle class family, and it was a luxury to spend so much of money. Probably full earnings of my family members could have gone into repaying the loan of that cost. So I wasn't feeling right about it. So I said, let's not. I should not be doing this. So I came back. We were back in Bombay, and I sort of looked around for different kinds of courses. And this was in about 2004, 2005, when there was a course called as Bachelor of Mass Media. So there was a course, I think, second year into that course, and I sort of figured a few things. I'd read about it, and I did my own research, went to the colleges where the course was being offered. I actually gave entrance at about three colleges. Out of the three, I got into two colleges, which is one in KC College and one in a National College. So
All
obviously,
right.
national, because of the proximity was closer. So I decided that okay, my name was on the board admission list. So that's when I actually came back home and I told my parents that by the way, I've secured admission in this course and I need to pay the fees. And till that time, I had not told my parents that what course I'm going into, where am I going to pick my forms, what entrance am I giving. So I said, give me some time, let me figure something. So when I came back, I told them there's this course that started by Mumbai University, and I would want to enroll into that. So obviously there was a bit of apprehension because we had no sort of background at all into this field of media, into this field of journalism. Even though my dad was working with Air India, he has always been a social worker since his childhood days. So he was connected to a few Gujarati writers because he also used to sort of sometimes write and have an opinion on different things. So that was the only thing, right? So there was obvious apprehension in terms of, okay, is it the right thing, am I taking a risk, am I taking a huge punt? But I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, let me do this and see what I can make of it, because I did not have any sort of connections or godfathers, as people say. So I decided to take up this course, did a fantastic job in the first year. I cleared first year, and then I had to take admission in second year. So the challenge was I did not have money. The course fee was 8,000 bucks, and we didn't have money at that point of time due to some financial constraints to pay the money, to pay the
Mm-hmm.
fee. So I actually went up to the principal and I told the principal that, this is my first year mark sheet and I've done extremely well. I'm a distinction student. So if you don't give me admission to continue for second year, then I might miss out on an opportunity. So thankfully, my
Wow.
principal Anand from National College was very kind, and she sort of gave me a leeway. And eventually, obviously, I got extension. I got admission, but I also got extension to pay my fees. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey since then. I still carry that letter. Ironically, just before this is the letter that I actually written to my
Wow.
principal. I have that, not because of
Yeah.
anything else, but because at times when you're down and you're low and you just want to sort of go back and remind yourself that this is where you began, so you have no reason to be upset or unhappy about. So it keeps you grounded. And ironically,
Absolutely.
just before the lockdown, I was actually felicitated by a national college for my journey. And it was amazing to be speaking and going back to the same conference room where we would make our presentations and stuff. So, yeah, I continued my media journey. So, in my course, after the second year, I was the only student who wanted to take up journalism. Everybody else out of a class of 64 wanted to take up advertising. So I
Okay.
shifted my college because it was not feasible for college to do journalism for one student. I eventually shifted to Wilson College. And while I was actually studying at National College, I was very clear that I had to make a early breakthrough, because when you don't have a support system or you don't have people who it's always better if you start early. You get that work experience, and also money was a big differentiator for me. So I had to sort of start working very early on. And probably second year of my college, I was doing my college in the morning, 7 to 1. And thankfully, I got a breakthrough at rediff.com. Um, uh, the editor there, Mr. Faisal Sharif, gave me that break early on. Probably trusted my reporting skills, or he just took a punt saying that, okay, let's give her a chance, let's give her an opportunity. So I would do my college from 7 to 1, and then I would go either to the website office, or I was supposed to be covering everything that happens in Mumbai with regards to sports.
Okay.
So I would either go to a ground, either if there was one event or a press conference or an athlete was in town, then you try and catch up with them, try and do an interview. So there was a lot of legwork that was involved, and I would do all of that in the second half of the day. So my day would actually begin at 7 a.m. and I'd probably end up coming home at about 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. And these were the days when there was I didn't have a laptop, I didn't have a mobile phone. So it was the PCO that I would use. I would probably go to a cyber cafe to file my story if I had to. And yeah, I mean, that's how it began for me. And I was very clear that when you sort of don't have a support system or somebody from family who's into it, so it's important to start early.
Absolutely.
And I sort of continued with that, finished my degree. Once I finished my degree, I was actually looking for a full-time job. I continued this freelance work, and I have an amazing story of this rediff.com, who my first interview was, that will come to it in some time. But
Okay.
my first interview was Sachin Tendulkar, and it was just by chance. I'll tell you how. We'll talk about it in some time. But yeah, so that's how my sort of journey went on. And after my course, I didn't have a job for about 6 months. So much so
Okay.
that I was sort of started questioning myself, did I do the right thing? Because a lot of few channels required you to have a foreign degree, especially channels based out of Delhi. Few of the editors expected that you would have some sort of a background, and I did not have any connection. But I knew I had one thing, which was belief, and I had a dream. So I sort of went ahead, kept applying. So I had about 25, 30 rejections. So much so that I had actually written a poem about rejection during that time, and I still have it somewhere.
Wow.
I was thinking about it, and I was like, what was I doing? But anyways, I think we all go through different sort of phases in our life and journeys, and that is what defines us. Eventually, I started working at Sahara for about 4 months. And then I had applied to Times Now. So I suddenly got a call from Arnab Goswami one evening. And I met him eventually. And in my first meeting, he's like, okay, you're on. Let's do this. So I was like, wow. So that is how
From the man himself.
Yeah.
Wow. That's quite a journey. And you know what? The two or three things that I got from this, monologue that you had was, one is that you believed in yourself. that is so important. The fact that you believe in yourself, the fact that you have conviction in your dream, that is so important. Second, what I liked is that your perseverance, you kept persisting, you kept pushing it, and the fact that you knew that you had to do it for yourself and by yourself. Oftentimes what happens is, with women especially, if we don't have somebody to back us up, we think, how am I going to do it? Will I really succeed? And all of this questioning is what really drags us down. So I believe,
Correct.
right,
But I
right
think
at
one of
the
the
start.
most important, yeah, but I think one of the most important thing was while I did this on my own, I had the support of my family. So my parents didn't
Absolutely.
question me. They actually took the risk on me, saying that, okay, if you want to do this, do this. If not, we'll figure out something. So they had that belief. And even though my sister was a software engineer and she continues to be doing really well in her field, they were open to me being in media. Now, see, in a Gujarati household, I don't know if you know about it, but in a Gujarati household, media, obviously, in any household, media comes with a set of perception, it comes with a set of
Absolutely.
ideas. So they sort of took that risk. I'm sure they would have probably had relatives and extended families who probably would have said that, are you sure you want to send your daughter into this? But they sort of backed me to the hilt. Like in media, we all know there are no weekends, there are long hours. So they never sort of questioned. They probably sacrificed more than what I did, and I bear the sort of fruits of it.
Yes, yes, that's so amazing. I hope that all you women who are listening to this do take some points home, do understand how important it is to believe in yourself. Going on to our so if somebody else, any woman out there, or anybody, let's not be gender biased. Let's just allow everybody in here. If they want to get into sports reporting, what are the steps that they need to follow? Besides all the other things that you said, but if there was a proper channel to follow, what is it that they should be doing?
Yeah, so I think, see, first of all, in journalism, if you're a great writer, so I know so many people in sports, I'll tell you, I know so many of my friends in sports who have been software engineers turned great writers. They are doing really well in sports. So the advantage with sport is as long as you're passionate about the game, it's always good. That comes in very handy. That's probably the most important factor in this journey for you to succeed. And also a degree definitely helps. Education, I would recommend, is 200% it helps, but more than education, what helps is on ground experience, on the job experience. Because I know that today when I look back at my educational journey, I don't know how much of what I studied I actually use, apart from obviously the values that we get in terms of a journalist has to be, there has to be integrity at play and stuff like that. That is important. But I think from 100%, if you look at that, 60% of, not even 60%, I think 40% is something that would be handy for me to understand the basics in terms of law, copyrights, and stuff like that. But beyond
Yes,
that, it's completely you gauge in terms of what works for you, what medium works for you. And the advantage today is when I started out, this was in about 2006, 2007, we had to align ourselves to a particular media network. We did not have Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. They were not so big at that point of time. So the advantage people and kids have now is if you're passionate about it, you just need a YouTube channel, you just need to be on Instagram, you need to be a great vocal voice to at least begin your journey. And that sort of
absolutely.
gives an impetus to your journey, and you will also get an idea, okay, am I good? What are the areas that I need to improve? Degree will always help. If in sports, I'll tell you. So if you're interested in sports, anybody, if you think a lot of people perceive that sports means कि आप athlete हो तो ही you can make a career out of it, but it's not
Yes,
like that. It's probably the best time in terms of the industry that is booming right now in India. I know things are going to change post COVID, but still, sports is going to be one of those industries which is always going to be flourishing. And India is sort of focusing its the government and all the big corporates are focusing their energies into sports, investing a lot into sports, because that's an important factor that sort of builds the culture of the country, and it also sort of
absolutely.
builds the mental aspect and mindset of individuals. So remember that if you're not an athlete, don't be disappointed. There are various fields that you can get into sports. You need to identify what is a specialization that you need to do. If you want to be in media, or you want to be in sports medicine, you want to be in sports science, you want to be an analyst. If you're good with your number crunching and data and stuff like that, you can also be an analyst. So there is a whole stream and a bunch of things that person can do in sports, as long as you identify what you need to do, or which is the field that you actually excel in, or which is the field that you actually prefer and you like. Then zero down on that, and each one has a course these days, which is like great. You have universities or courses in Mumbai itself, in India, that actually give you specialization of sports, which is not there earlier. People had to go to an Australia or a UK or a US, but now you have that advantage in India of doing these courses in India. And especially now with COVID, I'm sure there'll be a lot of parents and kids who would not want to go overseas for a brief while. So there's
Yes.
plenty of courses online. There's plenty of courses that happen in colleges in Mumbai and in India. So explore that. But if you're looking for media, then it's great to have a journalism degree, because journalism, the updated education system will teach you in terms of basics of television, basics of print. So actually in college you will get an idea. So I remember I'd gone to Symbiosis Institute of Communication. So they actually,
Yes.
during the time of induction, I'd met up with kids during the time of induction, and that's when there was a person I was there with me was an ad guru, and was somebody from print as well. So they actually, we gave a breakdown to the kids to understand that, okay, this is what your life will be if you're a television journalist. The other person gave an idea of what your life would be as a print journalist, and the third person gave a perspective about advertising. So that actually during the course you will understand, okay, this is something that I like. So you will focus
Yes.
on specialization into that. So these days the
Yes.
courses are evolved, and you need to have a degree, but it's most important. You will have rejections. You will, if you don't have a background, or if you don't know somebody, you will have rejections. But it's important to be persistent and believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you. So that's
Absolutely.
and that's how, I mean. And also my Twitter and Instagram handles are right there, so if anybody wants any advice, you can definitely connect with me, because I've had a bunch of, I realized that I did not have somebody who supported me or who mentored me, probably apart from the editors who gave me that breakthrough. So I sort
Yes.
of, whenever there's an opportunity that arises, if there is somebody from my village that my parents, who reach out to my parents, and if I need to help, then I'm always there, be it giving them internships or giving them leads. Okay, this is how you can do, giving them advice or mentoring them. So yeah, reach out to me, guys. Anybody who's interested in
Awesome.
sports.
Awesome. This is wonderful, and it's so important to give back when you have, earned something, gained something, and knowledge sharing is, I think, the more you share, the more you get. Uh, Now let me come to a little tricky question. When we started our conversations over email and chats and all of that, and I was doing my own research, and you search for women in sports or women broadcasters or presenters in sports, and the first 5 searches that came up were about hot broadcasters and sexy broadcasters and things. And for a second I laughed, wondering, is this all that we are limited to? Women can do so much more. So what are your thoughts on that? Have you ever had to face this?
So I'll tell you, it varies in terms of. I've had instances early on in my career, because, see, I'll tell you, challenge number one for me was getting a job and getting a placement in media as a journalist. And when I got that job, I thought, wow, I've got a job and now I can do everything. And that's when, boom, it came as challenge number two, that you are a women in sport, which means that I'm hanging around with probably 90% of the people are gents in the media community. And I think they've been phenomenal, most of them. But there were a bunch of people. So there are two parts to this. One is the athletes and administrators, and one is the fellow male colleagues from the media fraternity. So coming to the athletes first, see, I'll tell you, in any sort of relationship, it's about trust and understanding a person. So if you are a journalist, you will interact with athletes. The athlete will also gauge, because of their experience, they'll also gauge, okay, does this person know about it? Initially, there were a few questions in terms of, would she know the game, would she know the numbers, would she understand the stats? And that's fair. It's fair enough, because when you're coming new into the profession, people would have that doubt. But over a period of time, once you build that trust, once they know that, okay, here's somebody who understands the game, who sort of speaks a little bit of sense when it comes to understanding the politics of the game, and also has an understanding. So a lot of questions that you ask, a lot of interactions that you do, that is where your impression is set. So I think every individual in any sort of business will have three impressions. One is the first impression, one is the second impression, and the third impression is the critical, because first is you establish, second is just building the relationship, and third is if you know in depth about the game, only then you will be able to have a longer conversations. So I still remember, I think this is about a year and a half ago or something like that. We were out in Missouri somewhere, and we were generally the MS Dhoni, former India captain, was also at that trip with some of us. And he was like, at least the good thing is I can speak to you about the game, because not only do you understand the game, but you understand the politics of the game. And there are very few people that you could actually speak to in the group that I was in terms of the media group. Because and that comes after 10 years of trust, after 10 years of seeing that person. And the most important thing is visibility, in terms of you need to be around where they are, because once they see you, they know, okay, this person has been there. So that's the backgrounder to that. In that bit of information that I was telling you about my first big interview for Rediff.com, where I was in college. So I was obviously studying, and I was trying to look for stories, because it was Sachin's, I think, 35th birthday coming up or something like that. And I was speaking to a lot of people who were Sachin's friends. And by that time, I used to go to Wankhede pretty often, because that's where the Mumbai Ranji team and some of the cricketers from the Indian cricket team, when they were not on tour, they would practice there. So I would actually take around, like, a week. I would actually hang out at Wankhede for about 3 or 4 days. So that, if people are practicing, at least they'll see you around. So I go to Tendulkar's. I was supposed to interview Sanjay Narang, who was Sachin's business partner in the restaurant business that he had. So he was at Tendulkar's. I was called to Tendulkar's, so I went to meet Sanjay. And suddenly I was waiting for Sanjay. I see like a BMW pull in. And there was Sachin along with his brother Nitin, who would come for the first time to the restaurant. So Sachin was actually showing Nitin, who lived in US, taking him around to just show the restaurant, tell him what the menu is and stuff like that, as it was Nitin's first visit. So suddenly I am waiting for Sanjay, and Sanjay comes in and he's like, by the way, Sachin is here. Why do you need to speak to me? Just speak to Sachin. And he gets both of us talking, and then Sachin tells me, no, I'm at Wankhede. So I introduce myself, saying that, I'm still studying, and I'm Harini Rana. He's like, but I've seen you at Wankhede. So I was like, yeah, I keep coming because I'm freelancing for Rediff.com. So he's like, yeah, I've seen you around and stuff like that. And then he's like, okay, let's do the interview. So I was like, okay, then. So I was there to interview Sanjay Narang. I was not prepared to do an interview with Sachin Tendulkar. No research, no nothing. But obviously, as a journalist, it's your responsibility and job that you're getting paid for, that you need to be aware of things. So obviously, I had a bit of information in terms of the tour that he'd finished and what was coming up and stuff like that. So I asked him all the questions. So we did about a half an hour of interview. And that's the first time he's like, you come to the restaurant, you should try something. So he ordered for the signature peach iced tea, I still remember, and a couple of veg starters. So that was my first interview. And, when I was leaving, Sachin's like, I think you're really lucky. I was like, why? So he's like, there's only one organization, Midday. They were coming out with a special supplement. So I've only spoken to Midday. I have probably denied 100 interview requests that I've got. And here you've landed up with an interview. So you must be damn lucky. I was like, yeah,
I know.
Maybe you are the luck factor for me. So even today, when I message him for his birthdays or anything like that, I always tell him that you are the first in my life, first of many things in my professional journey.
Wow.
So
wow. This is
going back to the point that I was telling you, you need to be persistent. You need to be sort of there. So once you build that trust, there were no doubts in the mind of athletes. But administrators, some of them still sort of would be uncomfortable when a girl is sitting across them and questioning them or talking about them with all the information and data. Because if you're doing a story, you will probably have all the background data available. So administrators were a little apprehensive. But now that we have new age younger administrators, they are pretty okay with women being around. And also our country and the narrative around women in sport is changing. It's changing for positivity. The second challenge that I had was my fellow male colleagues. Now, most of them, the younger lot, they were absolutely cool because they would always take care of you. If you're the only girl on a tour and stuff like that, it does get challenging because you're out for like 50 days, 60 days in another country. but there would be a set of people, because you are getting the interviews first, because you're getting the stories first, because you're breaking stories much before your fellow male colleagues. They would have an they would be uncomfortable, because you're challenging something that they've been doing for last 20 years, and here's somebody who's come in 2 years into the profession and is challenging them. So I've had instances where fellow male journalists have actually gone ahead and questioned the BCCI or cricket administrators, that how is this girl getting the reports? How is this girl breaking the story? And why aren't we getting it? So the administrators supported me at that time, saying that maybe she's got it from her sources. Who knows? At least she probably would have worked harder to get it than what you guys did. So
Yes.
there have been instances where, to counter the fact that I've been competitive, I've got the interviews first. It's easy to slander, right? It's easy to raise
Very.
questions over a girl, or make some comments, or state something which would disturb a person. And initially it would sort of disturb me, but over a period of time, when I would think about it, I was like, maybe these are just people who are trying to distract me from me doing my job, so that I waste my energy onto them and get distracted from chasing a story, chasing an interview, or breaking a story. And credit where due, I think the Times Group and Arnab Goswami were phenomenal. They've been phenomenal in terms of supporting a girl to be in the field of sport, because it was always merit with Arnab. It was never about gender. And understand, here we are on a tour of say 4 months in Australia, which means if you're traveling as a girl, you will have a separate room. Camera person will have a separate room, which means your expenses are going up. But
Yes.
the channel, the editors, they never they only preferred merit. It was never about gender. So I think credit where it's due to them. And I had some phenomenal editors who supported me. There have been times when I've done interviews with players, and they've realized that those interviews that they've given have actually stirred a big controversy in Indian cricket. I've had the presidents of BCCI who's called my editor, saying that, how can such a story or an interview be done? But here is a guy who's a player in all his senses has given an interview. And that player himself later on turned out saying that, oh, probably this interview has been edited for their own benefit. So, I've had, you go through different challenges. You're managing a lot of egos when it comes to cricket and when it comes to sports. And these are big athletes, right? Who do really well for the country, and they are so successful. So if a girl sort of is reporting on something or gets something wrong, then, they're always there to chase you. But I think you let your work do the talking over a period of time. That's the bottom line.
I think here also the advantage that you have is that you're very spiritual. This is a conversation that we had. Remember about how spirituality has helped you stay, has helped you through this. So I think that has kind of also kept you grounded, has made you realize, being able to see what is right from wrong, and take what you think you need to grow ahead, and drop what you think is just clouding your mind. So tell me about your spiritual journey and how you have tied, both spirituality and sports together.
Okay, so before I go into that, there are quite a few comments coming in. Chandrapal saying, thank you very much. Julie
Yes,
Thakkar, hi to you. Lajja
that was me. That is,
Lajja
yes.
group, which is still saying hello to them. So guys, if you have any comments, keep them coming. We're going to be addressing them. We're going to be taking those questions as well. And going back to spirituality, so I'll tell you, Vandana, I think I have been inclined towards spirituality. I might not be a monk, but I've been inclined towards spirituality since probably since even I probably started understanding things. I had a spiritual master, Murari Bapu. So he is somebody who my parents have been sort of being listening to him for about 45 odd years. So pretty much since I was born, as long as I remember, in terms of every vacation, every break that we would have, we would always go to his ashram and would be attending his discourses. So earlier, I would never understand what all the discourses were because they were too heavy for me. But I would still go because I would enjoy the energy, the vibe, and stuff. And also, I think I realized the importance of this. I think 10 years ago, I started realizing the importance of this because it played a big role in me being part of sports. So I've always been interested in sports, right? As a viewer. Even when I was studying, I'd probably wake up at 2:30 in the morning if there was a cricket match in West Indies or New Zealand or somewhere and be watching all of those games. And my spiritual master actually knew about my inclination for sports. So obviously, they have that power that they know some things, and that's why they are where they are, because they probably know a few things more than what we do. So he actually told my parents in 1999 that there's a cricket World Cup happening in England. Why don't you send your daughter to watch the World Cup, because she's interested in sports? So my dad obviously said, of course we'll send her, but we didn't. And being honest, we didn't have the financial wherewithal for me to go, because I was still studying in school, and my parents were both working and trying to meet the ends meet. So eventually my dad told him that, we would want to send her, but I don't think we have the financial wherewithal right now to be doing that. And he's like, you just need to send her. He organized for my tickets, he organized for my accommodation, he organized for me to go and watch the matches there and ensure that somebody is there with me all along for the matches that I was attending, because I was still
Amazing.
studying. I was still like in class 8th or something like that. So that's when I went. England Cricket World Cup, watching my first live cricket match at Lords, and then I was like, wow, this is what the real deal of sport is. So maybe when I started working, I realized that, maybe that moment that I went there in 1999 gave me the exposure of what a World Cup is. And that's my first live sporting event and World Cup stature. So that's like unthinkable. And that sort of opened my whole worldview in terms of, okay, there is an industry like this that exists in sports. And then I saw the media box and stuff like that, and I was like, wow, how nice it would be if I could come one day and be at Lords and covering a match and stuff like that. So today when I look back, that played a very critical role in my journey, because maybe that was the turning point for me, where in my mind I manifested or thought about it, that maybe
Yes.
this is what I want to do. So that's the role of my spiritual master in my journey. And also, like, sports gave me my professional life, it gave me name, it gave me fame. But what spirituality and my spiritual guru Morari Bapu gave me was how to handle that success that came with it, how to still be grounded, because in media they say you're as good as your last story. So how to still be grounded, and how to deal with the crazy lifestyle that we have in media, because here we are meeting up with the Sachin Tendulkars, the Dhonis, Virat Kohlis of the world. I was the first Indian to interview Usain Bolt when he came to India. So you're meeting
Wow.
different kinds of people who have a different kind of lifestyle, and they live in a different bubble, right? Like the celebrities, they have their own little world. So not to get influenced by them and still be grounded. So all of those factors is where spirituality came in. It kept me grounded. It made me understand that, okay, this is a part of my life. This is not my life. And also it gave me to sort of give back. So I think for me, life is all about, balancing between work and understanding that at the end of the day, what people will remember you along with your work is the relationships that you build, the harmonious, the how you've helped the society, how you've sort of given it back. And it's the impression, right? It's the personality that people remember. Eventually they're not going to remember this is the interview, this is the story. They're going to remember you as a person. So that's very critical, and
Yes.
that's what spirituality gave me.
Yes, yes. This is wonderful. There is Preeti Thakkar who's saying sports journalism is a very glamorous field as well. Being so young, what is the biggest challenge you faced deciding between spiritual ethics, logic, and glamour? Wow, quite a
Yeah,
heavy
so
question.
so suppose any journalism is extremely glamorous field. Let me tell you, when you're sitting out there, it's glamorous. Like, okay, for example, if I'm interviewing Usain Bolt, it's what you see on screen is an interview with Usain Bolt. But what happens behind the scenes is probably 15 or 20 days of hard work convincing Usain Bolt's manager that, listen, this is my profile, this is the profile of the network that I work with, and making hundreds of calls to ensure that you're the first person to interview him when he lands into India. And that means that you are sort of already in that city 2 days prior. You're already sort of working back and forth with the person who's coordinating all of these. I still remember there's a friend of mine who visited my place about a month ago, about before the lockdown, a month before the lockdown. And he was actually chatting with my parents, and he was like, my first impression of Harini was, it was at a 5-star hotel that he must have seen me sitting in the lobby, because most of the sports people end up staying in a Taj or a Trident. So he's like, I saw her for the first time at about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I came back at about 8 o'clock in the night, and she's still sitting there. So, and I was sitting there for an interview, by the way. I was sitting there for an interview of Brett Lee,
Okay.
who actually was supposed to give me an interview in the morning, and then he forgot he had some appointments and some shoot to be done. So he's like, just hang around here for some time. I'll come back, but don't go anywhere. I'll come back. And it turned out to be like 10 to 12 to 2 to 6 to 8. Eventually at 8:30 he came in. He was extremely apologetic for making me wait. But that's the kind of hard work that goes into it. I've covered World Cups. It means that you're traveling away from your home for about 4 months. Like, I don't, you mentioned that I was covered in the Herald Sun and ABC. So I was covered as the only female journalist in a press contingent of 100 plus male individuals from India. So I was actually
Wow.
invited by the former Australian PM, Julia Gillard. She read that article, and after that, she invited me over to the Kirribilli House, which is the PM house. And she actually caught up with me then. She's like, how great it is. And honestly, I don't think that's something to be celebrated about. I think we need to improve that as a country. And that's improving. We are having more girls coming into sport. But it is glamorous because you're meeting different kinds of people. But it's extremely what spirituality taught me is to learn from these individuals. Usain Bolt or a Gagan Narang or any of the athletes that you meet, they see the peak, but they've also experienced failures and challenges. And they've also experienced what happens when things are not going well, which means the media would probably be questioning them for their performance. So you learn so much. So spirituality put that in perspective for me to understand that, okay, here are the people that I'm meeting in, but what else can I learn from them beyond just interviewing them or beyond just reporting on those stories? So that's where spirituality came in, to understand the life lessons that I could learn from these guys, implement them in my life, because I do believe what I have learned from sports probably has been my sports and spirituality have probably been my PhD, university, or whatever you call it, because I did not have the pleasure of or the luxury of going to MBA school, and that's my MBA. I believe the lessons that I've learned from these two fields together. And with regards to glamour, I think glamour is just a small part of it. A lot of it is driven based on your performance, based on how well you know the sport. And glamour is just one of those added elements that comes into it. It's not driven by that. But remember, when you're into journalism or media, whoever is listening to us, you need to be mentally prepared to be working and be available all the time. Yeah, like you're on the go 24/7, especially if you're on a TV channel, and especially if you're working with somebody like Arnab Goswami, you are on the go. You have to be available. There can be a story that can break at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m., or 7 a.m. You have to be mentally ready. You have to be always on your toes. There are no festivals, there are no weekends. Depending on the flow of the news or the reporting that you're doing, you probably get like a day off. So, which could be a Monday or a Tuesday. So, you will have to negotiate all of that. You have to sort of sacrifice a lot of your personal life. Your family has to be ready to sacrifice, because I would probably come home at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and my mother would still be awake to serve dinner for me. So all of those things play a very critical role, and it is important to be grounded, because these days we are seeing what's happening to individuals. You will achieve everything as long as you're putting in the hard works. It might take some time. You might not get everything in 5 years. So it's just about being patient and being grounded, because this media life with the glamour, you'll be like, wow, I've arrived here. But remember, you're as good as your last story. So it's important to be not forgetting the focus of your journey, which is chasing stories, getting stories, and doing the big interviews and doing the big reportage. Like I just want to, I don't want to take much of time, but I just want to mention one incident. I covered the 26/11 terror strike, right, in Bombay. So that night, me, Arnab, and one more individual from our team were actually in the elevator. After he finished his show, we were leaving. By the time the news had started trickling in that there is some sort of a gang war happening in the southern part of Bombay. So we were like, okay, should we stay back? Because I think there were only a couple of reporters who were there. One was me and one was somebody else. So, Arnab was like, no, you guys go, because in case of there's something big, then you guys will have to fill in tomorrow. And he went back, he took the elevator back, he dropped us, and then he took the elevator back because he decided to not go home, because he sort of sensed that there could be something big into this. So he sort of waited for about half an hour. And by the time I reached home, it was pretty much the MEA had announced that, Mumbai is under attack and stuff like that. So I was monitoring the news from my house. I was watching it. So probably because of such a big news event, you can't even sleep properly. So I was just watching what's happening and what were the developments and stuff. And at about I remember 3:30 or 4, I got a call from office. saying that you need to go to Kama Hospital because apparently there were rumors that some terrorists could probably be held up there still. So in the morning, I left and I took the train because that was the quickest way for me to get there. And I've never seen Bombay so quiet. First of all, I've covered a series of bomb blasts that happen in trains and quite a lot of other stuff, but I've never seen Mumbai so quiet. So I got into the train. I was the only one in the compartment. Eventually went to Kama Hospital. So this is I was out at about 5:30, right? So I reached Kama Hospital about 6:30 or so. Everything was clear at Kama Hospital. I was told to move to Trident, so I moved to Trident. So 6:30 that I reached at Kama Hospital. I did like the whole 24-hour because at that point of time the situation was evolving and there were less reporters. The entire Bombay staff was covering the event, so I was right outside Trident, something that I'd never experienced before, but I was covering. So there have been instances where we've seen from windows that there are people who are waving or standing with their guns. We could hear grenades being hurled. We could hear a lot of stuff, but you obviously couldn't do anything. So we were just out there sort of reporting, doing back-to-back lives and stuff like that. So from that 7 a.m. that I was there till next day afternoon is when I actually came home. All along, we were
Wow.
right at Trident or around the Air India building because that's where they had sort of blocked the entry. Be it your lunch, be it your dinner, be it whatever, you were on the road having all of that and, just managing. We were just probably all reporters standing in a queue, just about managing to survive and just go through it. But obviously, you have that adrenaline, you have that excitement, you have that
Yes,
energy that keeps you going. There's something that ticks in when you're reporting on a big story that keeps you going. So it's that, Jessica, it's that nasha that you get. So you're on
yes,
that
yes.
high that keep doing it, doing it, doing it, doing it. So those are the kind of backstories that people need to remember when you want to sort of get into media, that this is the kind of life that you will have, and you need to be mentally prepared for it. Because
Mentally
it's so
prepared.
hard
Yes,
for some people come into it for the glamour, and then they get disillusioned saying that, oh shit, this is so much more than just glamour. So you need to be aware of the reality, and that's the whole crux of sharing this background for people to understand that this is the reality of media as well, along with the glamour and all of that, and that comes with it. That's part of it.
yes. Which is, see, I this brings me back to that question that I had asked earlier. About how women are not really not forget sports journalism or sports broadcasting. Women are not. I am probably a couple of years senior. I did when I wanted to do journalism. We did not have a full-fledged BA or a full-fledged 3-year course on journalism. So I've done a diploma in journalism, and I know I got my first break with the Indian Express. And my father immediately said, no, this is not for you. And I'm like, then why did you let me study this? So,
Yeah.
so to get him to convince him that no, this is where I want to be. And of
Wow,
course,
Indian
it's a
Express will be the safest place. Yeah, come on, journalism of courage.
but, yes, but then of course that's a different time and a different story altogether. But yes, so this is where where we need to encourage our youth. We need to encourage our girls to go out there and do things which they're capable of. There's so many girls who are capable of so many things, and yet this safety net, so-called safety net, that we want to shield them in is yes, as parents you want to do that, but I think you have to look at the bigger picture, the larger picture. And I'm so glad that we are having this conversation with you. Like, you just responded to Preeti Thakkar's
Yo,
question.
Preeti,
And
go Gujaratis. She says, I'm very proud of you.
yeah, I know.
Whatever you're doing, you're a Thakkar.
Preeti, I think we should be saying go girl, because that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah,
And
yeah, go
this is
girls.
so amazing. This is so amazing. So tell me, when you go to schools and institutes, what do you talk about? Uh, how are you, championing this cause of uh, girls getting into sports broadcasting, sports journalism, and journalism per se? What do you do? What do you say?
So I'll tell you, with regards to, the whole idea is to just give them a lot of people still believe that अगर हम athlete नहीं है तो हमारा future नहीं है sports में. So that narrative is changing, and it's important for it to change completely for people to believe that there is a whole array of things that any individual can do in the field of sport. As I mentioned, there's sports medicine, there's media, there's journal, there's blogging, there is a lot of other stuff that can be done. You can be a physiotherapist, you can be a data analyst, you can be a video analyst, and a lot of things which are available in sports. So what I try and do is just go and speak to people and make them aware that there is a world outside. If you're not an athlete, like I'm not an athlete, but there's a world outside that awaits you if you are keen to explore that world, if it's an area of interest to you. And what I also do, I want to share this story. In 2017 is when I actually went to Uttarakhand. Ranikhet is a place in Uttarakhand, and there's a village called as Benolia. So I decided to go there on my birthday. I was there for a week, and I'll tell you the reason why I decided to go there. There is a municipality school. A lot of the parents only send their kids to the school because of the midday meal scheme, right? Because obviously they come from poor BPL background. So I decided to go there, and I spent a week there because I wanted to sort of speak to the girls. I wanted to understand, are they interested in sports, because the terrain that they come from, they're physically far more superior to any one of us in terms of their stamina, in terms of their ability to run, walk, and stuff like that. Physically, they're far fitter because they're so used to walking through the caves, the hills, and the slopes and stuff like that. So that's when I actually took basic sporting equipment. So I ended up taking track pants, t-shirts, basketball equipment, and a football, like basic things, and a skipping rope and stuff like that. So I decided to spend my birthday there for a week. And when you have that interaction with those girls, so it was incredible. Like we gave all the goodies away to them, and they were very happy. But the kind of interaction that I had with the girls were like, they're very naive because they're so disconnected from what the real world is, and they are in their own sort of law of the land. They're like, can we actually play with guys? They had questions like this. One of the question was, हम इनके साथ खेल सकते हैं, हम इनको हरा सकते हैं, एंड हम खेलेंगे तो फुटबॉल खेलेंगे तो अगर लड़के हमारे चेस्ट पे देखेंगे, यहाँ पे देखेंगे, तो हम कैसे, क्या करना चाहिए, हमें दुपट्टा कैसे कवर करना चाहिए. So those were the very basic level questions that they had. So I sort of trained them for a week, and eventually first they were very uncomfortable that they had to play with the guys. Eventually we formed a mixed team, and we sort of made it a little bit of fun so that they could get comfortable with the idea of playing with guys, because I do believe that even if they don't learn the sport, at least they will learn what is it being competitive. At least they will learn that I need to keep pushing myself in terms of if I'm not succeeding, because at first go they didn't understand how to play, what were the basics, what were the rules, but eventually they did pick it up within a week. So I still sort of, through my friends, I'm still in touch with them to check how are they doing, what's happening, are they missing sports. So these are the kind of things that you do. And if you are in a position, I also do some work with I'd also been part of the Nike training club, so where we would sort of try and encourage more girls to take up fitness in Mumbai, in metro city. So there would be free workouts every weekend. A bunch would get together and they would just do workouts. And the whole idea is, if you're in that position, make your voice heard and try and make a difference. And I know what I've done is probably not even one sort of drop in the entire ocean. But if people who are listening right now, if it changes one person, I think we've done a great job. So that's the critical part.
Wow, this has been a lovely, time has just flown past and we haven't even realized that. So, we are coming to an hour.
When you give me the mic, I don't stop. Sorry for that.
No, but I'm so glad that we have had this conversation, and I'm sure, I have goosebumps over here, and I'm sure that a lot of others who are listening in are also having the same experience. So, I hate to do this, but I think we need to wind this up. But before we go, I want you to leave our women, our girls, with 5 things. I generally ask all my guests this because I know that when people of influence, people who are in position like yours, when you come here and you give 5 things that women need to remember, I know it makes an impact. So please share 5 things that you want my women, my girls, and all the women out there to remember, something that will help them make a change in their own lives.
Okay, first of all, I think we all have stories. We all have stories. We need to put it out there. The challenge is, I'm a firm believer of ask, believe, and receive. So we need to put our stories out there. Every individual is a storyteller in their own way. You just need that confidence. You just need that push. Belief is very important. Belief can move mountains. And I've seen that in my case. I'm not a upper middle class girl who's come from wherever. I'm probably a lower middle class girl who's reached this stage. So don't let your economic strata decide what you need to do in life. Let your belief and your hard work do that. There are no shortcuts to success. You need to work hard. You need to slog your ass off every single day, and remember that tomorrow, if you have failed yesterday, you're going to succeed eventually. Everything falls in place at some day, right now it might be challenging. There'll be a lot of people who right now probably be out of job, probably be going through tougher times, probably be alone right now. Don't let that affect you. It's a temporary phase, remember that. Because spirituality teaches you that everything is temporary, and whatever we are going through now is going to eventually make us only stronger. I do believe challenging times only give you life lessons. They give you lessons that you can implement in your life and make you a better person. And in any situation that we all go through, be it the positives, be it the negatives, or be it the challenging times. I don't want to use negative word because it is negative, so I try and use challenges in terms of failures and negatives. So the good times and the challenging times, remember, we are going through that situation for a reason. And that reason is to
Yes,
make us better. And that's what spirituality teaches
absolutely.
you. And the other thing is detachment. And let me tell you, I remember this quote from Bhagavad Gita. It says, detachment is not that you own nothing. Detachment is ensure that nothing owns you. So we are getting
Wow.
consumed with so much of hate on social media. We're getting consumed with all of those things. Like what happened to Sushant Singh Rajput? I think it's extremely difficult for us to comprehend that, but it's also a reality check for all of us that 10 million followers on a social media platform doesn't mean anything. So
Yes,
it's good that you have it. Use it to your advantage. Social media and all of that, I think they're great tools where you use it to your advantage, but don't let it consume you, because that's what I see a lot of people around me. Even I see a lot of people around me in my media field who are getting consumed with the stress that everybody is dealing with. And figure out a way which works for you. For me, it was spirituality, thanks to my spiritual guru and my parents, because of whom I got access to him and his learnings and his discourses, Murari Bapu. So figure out what works for you, because remember, in this time of Corona, it's taught us that life is all about going back to the basics, and we need very little to
yes,
live our life. So let's be happy and
absolutely.
content with what we have, and less is more. Remember that. And yeah, otherwise the world is yours. Just believe in yourself and go for it. Don't let anybody say anything else against your belief, because if they're saying that, they don't believe in you, but you believe in yourself, and probably they are insecure that you
Absolutely.
reach somewhere. So don't take no for an answer. Just chase your dreams. I don't want to make it too profound or too serious, but
No, but yes,
spirituality works, and it's done wonders to me in terms of my energy, my aura, and just how I've dealt with life in terms of success, in terms of tougher times.
amazing. This has been an awesome conversation, and I will admit it, on this forum that this has been so far the bestest of the best that I've done so far.
Yay!
So thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
Harini.
you,
Thank you so
Vandana.
much for making this day and this conversation so special. I hope to be in touch with you and hope you remain in touch, and there is so much more that we can do together. And to all of you out there who are watching us, who are listening to us, I hope you do take home this positive, the energy that she has given this interview. I hope you take it with you, and let's all make something of our lives, because this is an opportunity that comes to us. So, yes, thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Thanks, Vandana.
Thank
I think Lajja as a forum is doing great in terms of creating these conversations, making these conversations normal, and giving a platform to such conversations, because I think it's very critical. And going
and
ahead, it's going to be extremely critical to have such meaningful conversations which have a positive narrative to it. So kudos to you and
absolutely.
your team and everybody who's
Thank
working
you.
backhand at Lajja, and also to the
Thank
founder.
you.
Thank you for having me. And
The
yeah,
founder is also a good you girl. The
yeah, and for anybody who wants to have any queries, want to reach out to me, my Twitter and Instagram, follow, show some love. And during the lockdown, I've started a
yes.
series called as Gujju Gappa with Harini. So that started during the lockdown. You can sort of catch all the
Okay.
episodes there as well. So yeah, look forward to answering
Awesome.
any queries or helping anybody or everybody out there. No worries.
All right. So with that, we end this conversation, and we will meet again for the next Saat Ki Baat Lajja Ke Saath on July 1st. Thank you so much, Harini.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
having me, guys. Thank you.